Chapter 605. Flying Bird. Wu Ming was slightly surprised. That's right, the person that Wu Ming saw when he opened the door was one of the three problem children, Jiao Yuanfei. At this moment, Flying Bird was wearing a red dress that Black Rabbit helped to modify. She crossed her arms and looked at Wu Ming. It seemed like she had been waiting for Wu Ming for a long time. What a surprise, you actually came looking for me. It wasn't that their relationship was bad, but because Jiao Yuanfei usually worked with the girls. When she was with Wu Ming and the other boys, it was always a scene where everyone was present. Just like now, Jiao Yuanfei came looking for Wu Ming alone, which really surprised Wu Ming. What's there to be surprised about? I naturally came looking for you for something. Jiao Yuanfei raised her eyebrows and said unhappily. But just as Jiao Yuanfei finished speaking, her stomach growled. Rumble. This made Jiao Yuanfei's face instantly turn red. Wu Ming and Letitia looked at each other and smiled. Then Wu Ming opened his mouth. You haven't eaten yet, right? Let's talk as we walk. Jiao Yuanfei nodded. Wu Ming and Jiao Yuanfei walked side by side. The maid Letitia followed behind Wu Ming. On the way to the no-name cafeteria, Wu Ming asked Jiao Yuanfei why she was here. Then why did you come looking for me? But Jiao Yuanfei was a little dissatisfied with Wu Ming. You rascal, didn't you say that after the matter with Letitia was over, we would study my gift together? Did you forget? Jiao Yuanfei pouted. Wu Ming's body slightly paused. Then Wu Ming smiled at Jiao Yuanfei. How could I forget? It's just that these 2 days I was a little addicted to the books in the library. Actually, I decided not to go to the library today. I was going to look for you. Wu Ming answered Jiao Yuanfei awkwardly. Letitia can testify for me. I really did decide not to go to the library today, right Letitia? Wu Ming looked at Letitia and gave her a look. This made Letitia not knowing whether to laugh or cry. But no matter what, this was her master, she still had to give her some face. Miss Flying Bird, Master really did decide not to go to the library today. Although he didn't want to go look for you. But this was something that Letitia would definitely not say. I'll believe you for now. Jiao Yuan Flying Bird did not say anything else. However, she wasn't stupid enough to believe that Letitia was Wu Ming's subordinate. She was just giving Wu Ming face. After breakfast, Wu Ming and Jiao Yuanfei came to a wasteland in no name. Beside them, Letitia, 16 Knights, Haruai Hiroyuki, Black Rabbit, Ren, and the others. Even the little fox girl Lily came. At that moment, Wu Ming cursed helplessly. I say, why is everyone here? The one who answered Wu Ming turned back to 16 Knights with interest. Isn't it obvious? Little brother, how could we miss out on something as interesting as researching gifts? 16 Knights' words made Haruai Hiroyuki nod in agreement. Black Rabbit, because I don't have work today, I heard that Miss Flying Bird and Mr. Villo are researching gifts, so I came. Black Rabbit smiled and touched his head. I. Ren stuttered as he tried to explain, but Wu Ming interrupted him. Okay, I'm not blaming you. There's no need to find a reason. If you want to see it, just come. Wu Ming shook his head. Then, Wu Ming looked at Jiao Yuanfei. Then, let's begin, Flying Bird. Okay. Jiao Yuanfei nodded. But, what should I do? Jiao Yuanfei asked. Although it was researching gifts, how should she research her aura? That's easy. Wu Ming smiled. Isn't your gift domination? If I'm not wrong, you haven't tried to dominate inanimate objects. Because of her dislike of the gift of domination, Jiao Yuanfei tried not to use it. After hearing Wu Ming's words, Jiao Yuanfei nodded. Jiao Yuanfei had no choice but to use domination on inanimate objects. Needless to say, Jiao Yuanfei wouldn't use domination on inanimate objects. Then you can try domination on inanimate objects. After Wu Ming said that, he snapped his fingers. A sword that looked exactly like the divine blade of salvation, or rather Excalibur, appeared in Wu Ming's hand. This is a fake holy sword that I created using magic. When you say its name, it can release a shockwave of light. As he said that, Wu Ming threw the sword at Jiao Yuanfei. Miss Flying Bird. Facing such a sharp weapon, everyone was shocked. Black Rabbit even shouted. Not only was the crowd shocked, Even Miss Zhao Fei Niao was shocked. Stop! As if his words were a law, the fake holy sword that Wu Ming threw out wobbled and stopped in the air. Then, as if the words of a bird were too weak, the fake holy sword only stopped for a moment before it fell to the ground and stuck firmly in the ground. At the same time, Jiao Yuanfei showed a tired expression. It seemed like Jiao Yuanfei was not able to control inanimate objects well. She still lacked training. However, this was also related to the object that she controlled. Although the fake holy sword was a fake, it was still a holy sword. At most, it could be considered a temporary holy sword. Wu Ming guessed that Jiao Yuanfei, who did not train herself, would not be able to control the fake holy sword well. Just as Wu Ming was thinking, Jiao Yuanfei opened her mouth angrily. What are you doing? It's too dangerous. Jiao Yuanfei put one hand on her waist and pointed at the fake holy sword in front of her as she angrily said to Wu Ming. Obviously, if Jiao Yuanfei did not control the holy sword would have landed on Jiao Yuanfei's head. Sorry. That was also to test your ability. After all, a person's potential will only explode in danger, right? Wu Ming apologized sincerely. Although humans were such animals, Wu Ming's actions still made Jiao Yuanfei unhappy. However, a serious expression appeared on Wu Ming's face. Although that is the case, I will definitely not let my comrades get hurt. If you did not stop that sword, I would have destroyed it before it landed. Silent Bird's words about not letting his companions get hurt made Jiao Yuan Flying Bird feel a little better. If you are in danger next time, I will not let you get hurt as well. Consider this as me owing you a favor. Wu Ming smiled. Then it's a deal. Jiao Yuanfei looked as if she had taken advantage of him. Then what should we do next? However, Wu Ming's next words shocked everyone. Pick up that fake holy sword and attack me, Yuanfei. Chapter 606. Flying Bird was surprised. Black Rabbit's surprised voice was even louder than Jiao Fei's. Will there be any danger, Villo? Black Rabbit was worried. Even though the three problem children would tease Black Rabbit from time to time after coming to this world, and Black Rabbit was also quite angry, Black Rabbit had never been angry from the bottom of her heart. Because they were companions. Black Rabbit's companions. Black Rabbit did not want to see her companions get hurt. Even if she had to sacrifice herself for her companions, Black Rabbit was not willing to let her companions get hurt. Otherwise, why would nothing happen to Black Rabbit every time she attacked the three problem children? It was because Black Rabbit did not want to attack at all. Then, Wu Ming was the same to Black Rabbit. She did not want to see him get hurt either. At this time, Letitia pulled Black Rabbit's skirt. Don't worry, Black Rabbit. Letitia smiled confidently. Master is very strong. A mere fake holy sword won't be able to hurt him. As a dependent who obtained Wu Ming's power, Letitia was the most qualified to say this. Don't worry, Black Rabbit. I'm not mocking Flying Bird. She doesn't have the ability to hurt you now. Although it was arrogant, it was the truth. Jiao Fei's gift was not effective on Wu Ming. Even with this fake holy sword made by Wu Ming, it was still unknown whether it could hurt Wu Ming. However, Wu Ming's taunt caused the word Jing to appear above Jiao Yuan Flying Bird's head. His originally hesitant heart immediately became firm. Her good mood also became bad. After all, no matter who was called weak, that person would not be happy. Being angry was the least of it, even if the other party did not mean to mock. You said it, Villo. I won't take responsibility if you get hurt. Jiao Fei's little face puffed up as she angrily pulled out the fake holy sword from the ground. The holy sword's heavy weight made Jiao Fei's delicate body wobble. She almost lost her balance. However, this was something that Wu Ming was happy to see. If Jiao Fei didn't want to do it, it would give Wu Ming a headache. No problem. Bring it on. Wu Ming smiled warmly. However, to Jiao Fei Niao, this smile seemed to be mocking her. If Wu Ming knew what Distant Flying Bird was thinking, he would have cried out that he had been wronged. He was only interested in what Distant Flying Bird's gift would do to the fake holy sword. The holy sword's real name is Excalibur. You just have to raise the holy sword and shout its real name at me before slashing down, Wu Ming kindly reminded. Excalibur. Kazuhito was shocked. King Arthur's sacred sword, huh? The Villo sure is an interesting friend. As if to explain their surprise, Haruai's eyes lit up. However, Laetitia and 16th Knights didn't show any difference. Laetitia was used to her master being too strong, while 16th Knights was thinking about the Excalibur that Wu Ming mentioned. King Arthur? 16th Knights narrowed his eyes and looked at Wu Ming. Jiao Feinyao looked at the holy sword and nodded. Understood. Jiao Feinyao said and raised the fake holy sword. Instantly, the scene fell into silence. Including Laetitia and the others who were watching, no one made a sound. A gentle breeze blew by and caressed Wu Ming's short hair. It also blew Jiao Feiniao's long hair. Kazuhito, Ran, and Lily couldn't help but swallow their saliva. They were quite nervous. On the other hand, Laetitia, Haruai, and 16th Knights didn't show anything. No, 16th Knight's smile should be said to be quite tyrannical. In the next second, the wind stopped. As if it was a signal, Jiao Feiniao's eyes trembled. She opened her mouth and shouted the holy sword's real name. Excalibur. Jiao Feiniao's spiritual words seemed to be attached to the holy sword. The holy sword emitted a dazzling light. The holy sword emitted a light that couldn't be seen clearly. Not only that, the holy sword was still absorbing magic from the surrounding air. More and more light gathered on the holy sword. Perhaps it was because it was the first time that Jiao Feiniao was controlling an inanimate object. The power gathered on the holy sword was unprecedentedly strong. The light stunned Wu Ming. This is already comparable to a real holy sword. Black Rabbit and the others were also attracted by the light of the fake holy sword. So pretty! Lily wagged her fox tail, her eyes sparkling like little stars. This power. Jiao Feiniao looked at the holy sword she was holding hesitantly. She was afraid that the light was too strong. It was so strong that it might accidentally kill Wu Ming. Seeing Jiao Feiniao's hesitation, Wu Ming shouted loudly. Feiniao, attack me with all your strength. That way, I can analyze how much your gift has improved this fake holy sword. Although that was what he said, Wu Ming could more or less guess the use of Jiao Feiniao's gift. Jiao Feiniao nodded. Not only because of Wu Ming's words, Jiao Feiniao also felt that the holy sword in her hand couldn't hold on for much longer. It felt like it was about to break. Then, here I come. Following that, with her trust in Wu Ming, Jiao Feiniao didn't hesitate and slashed the holy sword in Wu Ming's direction. In an instant, the pressure of the holy sword was released. The light on the holy sword seemed to have found an outlet. The light was like a raging wave. It fiercely rushed towards Wu Ming's direction. At that moment, Wu Ming gave everyone the feeling of an ant in front of a flood. Jiao Feiniao, who wasn't worried at first, turned pale. There was no other reason. It was because the holy light that was released was too powerful. The energy contained in it made Jiao Feiniao's expression change. Stop! Jiao Feiniao didn't hesitate to control the fake holy sword in her hand again. However, the result disappointed her. Boom! In an instant, the fake holy sword exploded and turned into magic particles that dissipated in the air. Jiao Feiniao was also forced to take a few steps back from the sudden impact. It was obvious that the fake holy sword couldn't withstand the two completely opposite control spirits. Using her gift to release the real name of the noble phantasm and using her gift to release the noble phantasm again was like using explosives to break a dam. It was a little too whimsical to want to bet. Miss Feiniao. Mr. Villo. Black Rabbit couldn't help but shout. However, the most important thing was still Wu Ming because if Wu Ming was an ordinary person, he would be dead. Lily Ranha also looked at Wu Ming worriedly. Only 16 Knights and Letitia were very calm. This was because 16 Knights and Letitia believed that Wu Ming wasn't an ordinary person. He was a super strong person. On Wu Ming's side. Almost at the same time, the holy sword's impact of light arrived in front of Wu Ming. Facing the holy light that could destroy a city, Wu Ming stretched out a hand. Chapter 607. Wu Ming didn't do anything else as he stretched out his hand and started chanting. Thou hast violated the contract and brought sin to the world. Lord's Day. Sinners shall be punished. Crush their backs, dig out their tendons, bones, hair, and brains, and trample on their blood and mud. If I am the one who cannot approach the darkness, I will follow the words of the Lord and destroy thee. The moment he finished chanting, the holy light came into contact with Wuming. Mr. Villo? Black Rabbit panicked and her hair turned pink. But in the next second, everyone, including Black Rabbit, calmed down. The holy light stopped at Wuming's position. No, it should be said that the moment the holy light came into contact with Wuming's position, it disappeared for some reason. Moments later, the torrential waves of light disappeared. Everyone saw countless streams of light flowing into Wuming's palm, and in the middle of Wuming's palm was a pitch-black hole. The light of the fake holy sword was swallowed by it. Although he was also very curious about this, the most important thing for now was that Wuming was fine. Phew! Laetitia took a deep breath. Although Laetitia looked like she had victory in her hands, she was actually more afraid than anything else. After all, the relationship between two people changed not only on the surface, but also on a deeper level. Laetitia looked deeply at Wuming and said softly in a voice that only she could hear. My master. You're really amazing. So amazing that it's mesmerizing. In short, Wuming's action made everyone and Xiaofan sigh in relief. At this moment, Xiaofan, who was relieved, suddenly realized that her body had become weak. She didn't pay attention and fell backward. Unlike 16 Knights and Haruai Biao, whose blessings increased their physical strength, Xiaofan's blessings didn't increase her physical strength at all. In other words, Xiaofan was just a normal person. On the other hand, if an ordinary person were to fall to the ground and injure the back of his head, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if it didn't hurt the back of the head, for an ordinary person, falling backward would still hurt their back. Feeling the sudden loss of strength in his body, Zhuyuan Bird helplessly closed his eyes in fear, waiting for the pain from the ground. But after waiting for a while, Distant Bird realized that it didn't feel any pain. On the contrary, it felt like it had fallen into a very warm embrace. In the next second, Zhuyuan Flying Bird opened its eyes. Miss, I said I won't let you get hurt. Wuming teased. That's a very gentlemanly way of doing things. I'll give you an extra point. I'll even overlook your rudeness of carrying a lady in your arms, Xiaofan Niao retorted in response to Wuming's teasing. Then, Xiaofan Bird looked around and realized that it wasn't Wuming who had come to her side. Instead, she had come to Wuming's side. There was a purplish-black ripple where she was standing. At this moment, there was also a purplish-black ripple above her head, which was where Wuming was. Ah, is this a teleportation gate? That's interesting. Xiaofan Niao revealed an interested smile. This was Zhuyuan Flying Bird's evaluation after experiencing the teleportation gate personally. Wuming had forgotten that no matter how much of a missy Zhuyuan Flying Bird was, a problem child was still a problem child. After escaping from danger, the problem child's nature was revealed. Shaking his head, Wuming stopped carrying Zhuyuan Flying Bird. Instead, he placed Zhuyuan Flying Bird, who seemed to be fine, on the ground. Then, Wuming waved his hand and cancelled the teleportation gate. Then, Wuming looked at Zhuyuan Flying Bird. How are you? Is your body okay? Wuming asked. Thank you for your concern. Although I still feel a little uncomfortable, I'm basically fine. After moving her body, Zhuyuan Flying Bird replied to Wuming in a very ladylike manner. Wuming guessed that Zhuyuan Flying Bird's sudden lack of strength was the after-effect of using gift overload. After all, Zhuyuan Flying Bird's gift had not been used much. It was only used on people who were not very strong. This time, it was used directly on the Holy Sword. It was a rather intense operation. Zhuyuan Flying Bird might not be used to it. Still, even if it was a fake Holy Sword, it was still a Holy Sword. Even if Zhuyuan Flying Bird had one of the strongest gifts of humans, she could not use the fake Holy Sword that Wuming made without any after-effects. It was like playing a game. If you completed a rare quest and obtained a rare class, but that class was only level 1. You could not equip the class's level 100 equipment. Not even the fake level 50 equipment. Miss Flying Bird. Mr. Villo. Are you guys okay? Black Rabbit shouted as he ran. His face was full of panic. Ranhee Lily was following behind him. We're fine, Black Rabbit. Zhuyuan Flying Bird shook her head, telling him not to worry. Wah! That was so scary. First, Mr. Villo was almost killed. Then, Miss Flying Bird fainted. It was too dangerous. Black Rabbit looked extremely frightened. However, Black Rabbit's words made Wuming and Zhuyuan Flying Bird raise their eyebrows. Black Rabbit, What do you mean? I'm super strong. What do you mean by almost killed? And me? What do you mean by fainted? I'm still awake, okay? Wu Ming and Zhou Yuan Flying Bird said. Both of them grabbed Black Rabbit's rabbit ears and started to ravage them. Wah, wah, Mr. Villo. Miss Flying Bird, let go of me. Black Rabbit instantly became teary-eyed. Wu Ming and Fei Niao looked at each other, smiled, and said in unison. This is your punishment. Wah, you two problem children. Letitia, who was slowly walking over with 16 knights and Haruhai Biayoi, looked helplessly at Wu Ming and Flying Bird bullying Black Rabbit. She did not know what to say. She could only say that Black Rabbit was too cute. Sometimes, even she wanted to bully Black Rabbit. However, no matter what, Letitia would still take care of Black Rabbit. Therefore, Letitia quickly ended Black Rabbit's suffering. Master, after experiencing it personally, did you discover anything new about Miss Flying Bird's gift? Letitia asked. Everyone, including Wu Ming and Flying Bird, came back to their senses. That's right. Everyone's initial goal was to study Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's gift. Now, everyone was admiring Wu Ming and Zhou Yuan Flying Bird bullying Black Rabbit. Of course, there's a new discovery. Wu Ming calmly released the rabbit ears that were almost 1 meter long. By the way, Black Rabbit almost cried when it bounced back. I discovered that Flying Bird's gift is not to control, but to give. Chapter 608. Bestowal. Everyone was confused. Yes. Wu Ming nodded. Originally, when Flying Bird controlled the holy sword I made, I didn't see anything. However, when I realized that the control was only temporary, I began to doubt Flying Bird's bestowal. No one said anything. They all looked at Wu Ming, waiting for Wu Ming to continue. And after taking Flying Bird's attack, I was completely sure of Flying Bird's bestowal. Excuse me. Could it be that you judged it from the power of that holy sword? 16 Knights raised his hand and asked. At that moment, the problem children, including 16 Knights, didn't cause any trouble. They hid their nature as problem children. Naturally, I know the power of the fake holy sword that I created. Coincidentally, I also have a good understanding of the power of the real holy sword. The holy sword true name liberation that Fei Niao used just now was comparable to the power of the real holy sword. After Wu Ming finished speaking, he felt that his words weren't accurate enough. He shook his head. Although I can see that, I don't have the real holy sword. Therefore I can't prove it to you. How about this? As Wu Ming said that, he snapped his fingers. A silver holy sword that was different from the Excalibur appeared in Wu Ming's hand. With this holy sword, I can prove it to you. This made 16 Knights smile with interest. So that means you have the real holy sword. Wu Ming shrugged. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he answered with actions. Suddenly, a golden ripple appeared beside Wu Ming, and a silver-white holy sword appeared from it. The silver holy sword emitted a powerful and ancient aura. At first glance, one could tell that it was the so-called Godhead equipment in the box court world. The sword in Jiao Yufei's hand was exactly the same as the holy sword Wu Ming made. It just lacked the powerful and ancient aura. Flying Bird, is your body okay? Wu Ming asked Zhou Distant Flying Bird. No problem. I just wasn't used to it just now. I'm fine now. Zhou Yuan Bird was like a proud cat as he raised his head. Well then, I'll leave this to you. Wu Ming handed the fake holy sword to Zhou Far Flying Bird. After Zhou Yuan Flying Bird took it, Wu Ming pulled out the holy sword that was embedded in the golden ripples in the air. Fei Niao, try using your grace on this fake holy sword in your hand. Later, I will synchronize with you and use this real holy sword. Although he couldn't understand Wu Ming's actions, it was probably to prove Wu Ming's conjecture. Zhou Yuan Flying Bird nodded and raised the silver sacred sword. Then, Zhou Yuan Flying Bird looked at the sacred sword in Wu Ming's hand. What is this child's real name? Wu Ming smiled. He was quite happy that Zhou Yuan Flying Bird called his sacred sword a child. He stroked the blade of the genuine X-Silver sword in his hand. This child's real name is X-Silver. He has been with me for a long time. Zhou Yuan Flying Bird didn't know if the sacred sword had a mind of its own. When Wu Ming stroked the body of the The sacred sword trembled slightly as if it was very happy. Understood. Zhou Yuan Flying Bird smiled. After Zhou Yuan Flying Bird said, understood, other than Letitia who was standing behind Wu Ming, the rest of the no-name, including 16 knights and Haruhito Masaaki, quickly retreated 5 meters away from Zhou Yuan Flying Bird. What are you guys doing? Putting down the sacred sword, Zhou Yuan Flying Bird turned around and looked at the people who were not too far away. She instantly became speechless. We have no choice, Miss Flying Bird. We have seen the power of the sacred sword just now. It seems very dangerous. It is indeed better to stay a little further away. Black Rabbit smiled embarrassedly as he replied to Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's ridicule. Moreover, Mr. Villo is preparing to use the real sacred sword, True Liberation. We have to be careful. Ren touched the back of his head embarrassedly. That's right. Lily also nodded embarrassedly. Wu Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, he couldn't blame them. After all, Excalibur's noble phantasm wasn't weak, and Silver, which was also known as the Holy Sword, naturally wasn't weak either. It wasn't surprising that Wu Ming was able to scare everyone with it. But, what about you, 16th Knight? Don't tell me you're scared too? Wu Ming looked at Reverse 16 Knights who was standing in front of Black Rabbit, Ran, and the others. Wu Ming heard that in the gift competition where the prize was Letitia, Reverse 16 Knights was the one who broke the other's gift with his bare hands. Although the true liberation of the sacred sword was not weak, Wu Ming didn't think that the true liberation of the sacred sword would have any effect on Reverse 16 Knights when he was up against such a crazy person. Perhaps with just one punch, the sacred sword's light cannon would be destroyed. Why would I be afraid? It's just that I think it's a little troublesome. I'm the one who hates troublesome things the most. 16 Knights spread out his hands with a smile on his face as he answered Wu Ming helplessly. However, in Wu Ming's opinion, Reverse 16 Knights like to look for trouble, and also like to create trouble. He didn't seem to be afraid of trouble at all. Ignoring Reverse 16 Knights for the time being, Wu Ming looked at Haruhi Masaaki who was beside Reverse 16 Knights. What about you, Masaaki? Are you afraid of trouble too? As a fake girl, Haruhi Masaaki tilted her little head. I'm not afraid of trouble, but they all retreated, so I'll go with them. An extremely calm voice entered Wu Ming's ears, making Wu Ming feel like he was defeated. This made Wu Ming want to say, this time, you won't be completely liberated. There won't be any danger. Please don't worry. Forget it. Wu Ming didn't care about them anymore. Ignore them, Flying Bird. Let's begin. After greeting Flying Bird, Wu Ming and Xiaofan Flying Bird raised their sacred swords above their heads. Silver. Silver. Two completely different true name liberation were chanted by Wu Ming and Xiaofan Flying Bird. In an instant, the two silver-white sacred swords gathered a bright silver light. At the same time, the people who were hiding 5 meters behind Wu Ming and Xiaofan Flying Bird retreated even further. Hey, little brother, be careful not to misfire. Reverse 16 Knights didn't forget to tease Wu Ming. Wu Ming turned around and looked at Reverse 16 Knights helplessly. Xiaofan Flying Bird's attention was on the two sacred swords. Two silver-white lights with the same scale of energy were hidden and covered the silver sacred swords, just like the Excalibur from before. However, looking at the two sacred swords that were emitting the same power, Xiaofan Flying Bird seemed to have understood something. Chapter 609. After that, Wu Ming spoke to Zhou Yuan Flying Bird, who was in deep thought. That's fine, Flying Bird. Don't we need to release it? Zhou Yuan Flying Bird was confused. There's no need for that. After all, we still need to use No Name's land when it regains its vitality. It's not good to destroy this piece of land like this. Zhou Yuan Flying Bird was a little embarrassed. She naturally knew what Wu Ming was talking about. Even though Excalibur's attack wasn't aimed at No Name's house, it still managed to plow a large piece of wasteland around No Name. Moreover, it was a very fierce one. Rather than plowing, it would be more accurate to say that they had dug. Moreover, what Wu Ming said was right. After all, they still needed to use the land in the future. It was not good to destroy the land like this. Then that's fine. Zhou Yuan Flying Bird nodded with a little regret. Zhou Yuan Flying Bird actually liked the feeling of releasing the holy sword. After all, it was a light cannon. It was so exciting, and she had released it herself. Therefore, it was understandable that Zhou Yuan Flying Bird wanted to do it again. Wu Ming didn't notice Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's slightly regretful expression. He turned his head and immediately shouted to reverse 16 knights and the others. It's fine. Everyone, come over. Seeing that there was no danger, everyone stopped hiding. Instead, they walked over to Wu Ming and Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's side. Wah! It's already very beautiful from afar. Now that it's closer, it's even more beautiful. Little fox girl Lily curiously looked at the holy sword in Wu Ming and Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's hands. Actually, it's even better at night. Wu Ming freed one of his hands and patted Lily's little head. Lily's tail wagged as she enjoyed Wu Ming's touch. After patting little fox girl's head, Wu Ming looked at everyone. Does anyone see anything special about it? Wu Ming asked. Let me ask you a question. How is the quality of this fake holy sword? Zhou Yuan Flying Bird, who was holding the fake holy sword with both hands, asked. Her strength had not yet reached the level where she could lift the charging holy sword with one hand. It's a sacred sword that I casually created. It's an existence that will break upon contact with a slightly stronger weapon. After hearing Wu Ming's words, Distant Bird revealed an "I understand" smile. However, 16 knights had already seen through everything. It's a godhead, isn't it? 16 knights crossed his arms and smiled. Godhood. Black Rabbit was stunned. He did not understand how this had anything to do with godhood. At this moment, Letitia, who was standing behind Wu Ming, also spoke. Is that so? I understand now. Letitia only pondered for a moment before she quickly understood. She was like Zhou Yuan Fei Niao, watching from the side. Not to mention, Letitia only needed to observe and did not need to be distracted at all. It was not strange that she could understand the principle so quickly. At the same time, Haru Hibu Yai Chi also nodded. So that's how it is. That's why the fake sacred sword in Fei Niao's hand is as powerful as the real one. Haru Hibu Yai Chi was also very smart. 16 knights had already told her the answer. How could she not understand the principle behind it? What? What kind of profound question is everyone talking about? Don't leave Black Rabbit alone. Black Rabbit was irritated because he could not understand what Wu Ming and the others were talking about. However, Black Rabbit had indirectly forgotten about Renhua Lily. He did not know what Wu Ming and the others were talking about. 16 knights, Distant Bird, and Haru Hibu Yai Chi looked at each other, smiled, and showed an expression of problem children. Then the three spoke in unison. Be our maid and we'll tell you. 3-inch don't even think about it, you problem children? As if protecting his virginity that was about to be lost, Black Rabbit protected his body and took 2 steps back. Okay, everyone stop teasing Black Rabbit. Letitia came out to mediate. Okay, you're teasing Black Rabbit again? Black Rabbit's face froze, and then roared at the 3 problem children angrily. How could that be? Black Rabbit, we really do want to take you in as a maid. 16 Knights Reversal responded to Black Rabbit with a smile. Humph. Black Rabbit snorted and ignored the problem children. Instead, she looked at Wu Ming. Mr. Villo, tell Black Rabbit what's going on. Looking at Black Rabbit, who was already very pitiful, Wu Ming did not have the intention to tease her. In fact, it's already very obvious. I deliberately used a little magic to create a fake sacred sword. The result is that the fake sacred sword in Fei Niao's hand can't exert the power of my real sacred sword, but it reached the power of the real one in Fei Niao's hand. With Wu Ming's explanation and the divinity that 16 Knights mentioned before, Black Rabbit understood. In other words, this fake holy sword has been bestowed with a godhead. That's why it can reach the power of the real one despite its poor quality. Ren asked as if he was confirming something. That's right, that's it. Fei Niao's gift is not control. That's just a byproduct of her true ability. The true nature of Fei Niao's gift is to give the target a simulated divinity, so as to control the target of the simulated divinity. That was also why ancient flying birds, control, could even control a person's heart, just like how it dealt with Guard in the beginning. Because when the gift of the ancient flying bird was activated, Guard, who only had a 7-digit soul, became the ancient flying bird's slave in an extremely short period of time. The reason why it was a simulated divinity was because ancient flying bird could not control a target for a long time. Once this gift was not used, the simulated divinity that existed in a target's body would disappear. Unless Ancient Flying Bird continued to use her light of might on a target continuously. And the reason why Ancient Flying Bird's gift did not work on Wu Ming was also because of this. A simulated divinity was not a real divinity, so it was not that powerful. When Ancient Flying Bird's simulated divinity entered Wu Ming's body, Wu Ming's own strength destroyed the simulated divinity, which was a foreign object, so Ancient Flying Bird's control naturally could not be done. However, the ability to give a simulated divinity to a target is already very powerful. No wonder Lord White Yaksha said that Flying Bird's gift is also one of the strongest gifts of humans. Black Rabbit smiled and looked at Ancient Flying Bird. It must be known that only certain special existences could give divinity. It was not something that any random god could do. And Ancient Flying Bird could give a target divinity with a mere human body, which was already very heaven-defying. And whether it was divinity or simulated divinity, there was not much difference to Ancient Flying Bird. When she was powerful, the simulated divinity would naturally be the same as the divinity. Black Rabbit had a simulated divinity weapon, which was no different from the real one, because it was bestowed by the powerful Sakra. Seeing Black Rabbit's smiling face, Wu Ming mercilessly dealt a blow. That being said, Flying Bird's gift has a drawback. First, simulate the bestowal of a godhead and use it accordingly. After all, as long as he could find a powerful boon that could withstand the Ancient Flying Bird's boon, he wouldn't have to worry about the extreme method of having the boon sacrifice its lifespan to increase its power. As for the second point, 16 Knights spoke. The second point is to prepare a large number of normal boons for Milady. Each of them can be used as a one-time boon, right? 16 Knights smiled. But that means... Letitia and Black Rabbit said in unison and then paused. Milady Flying Bird's boon, actually. Lily Renwa continued Letitia and Black Rabbit's words and paused at the end. It's a very expensive boon. Haruhito Hikari, who was a pseudo-three-nothings, said the last thing. Jiao Yuan Fei Bird was dumbfounded. One should know that she, Jiao Yuan Fei Bird, was tired of the status and money in her world, so she abandoned everything and came here. But now, she was told that if she wanted to have fun in this game called Hackada World, she would have to pay for it. In other words, Jiao Yuan Fei Bird, who had abandoned her wealth, had to start working for money. Ha ha ha. Congratulations, milady. You can return to the time when you were rich. Although she had to earn money herself. 16 Knights laughed mercilessly as a bad friend. But this was the truth. And even Jiao Yuan Fei Bird had nothing to say. Well, since Mr. Villo lent us a lot of money, we can take a part of it to prepare some boons for Milady Flying Bird. After all, boons that could withstand the power of Jiao Yuan Fei Bird's simulated divinity were very rare, so they could only choose the second path. Actually, if Flying Bird needs it, I can create some powerful boons for you. After all, Wu Ming's create green item was not like projection magic, which could only last for a while. Wu Ming could make the item last forever, but it would take some effort. After all, it was very easy for a weak item to reach the stage, but it was very difficult for a powerful item to reach the stage. That was also why Wu Ming did not create a pseudo-sky lock that could last forever. Instead, he created a time-limited item that needed to be maintained by injecting mana regularly. This was because creating pseudo-sky locks that wouldn't disappear was very troublesome. Moreover, the wear and tear during battle made the loss outweigh the gains. It would be better to create pseudo-sky locks that would disappear and inject mana into them periodically. By the way, there was only one pseudo-sky lock left in Wu Ming's relic space. The rest were tied to the American Singularity Hercules and sunk into the lake with Hercules. However, it did not matter even if all of them were gone. Such a time-limited sky lock was easy to create. There's no need. Jiao Yuan Fei Bird successfully resisted Wu Ming's temptation. Jiao Yuan Fei Bird, won't trouble you guys. For the time being, I'll replace it with a normal boon. I'll think of a way to create a powerful boon myself. After all, it was a problem. Asterisk for a proud person, even if they were her companions, Jiao Yuan Fei Bird would not accept charity. Everyone looked at each other. Facing Jiao Yuan Fei Bird's stubbornness, they could only follow her wishes. Since that's the case, why don't you accept some of my toys? Wu Ming smiled and snapped his fingers. A few holy swords fell to the ground. I told you I don't need your help. Jiao Yuanfei Bird crossed her arms in front of her chest and rejected Wu Ming. However, Wu Ming shook his head. You can't say that. What you need are consumable blessings. My sacred swords are also consumable blessings. What's the difference between them? He picked up a holy sword and waved it in front of Jiao Yuanfei Bird. Since you need a trump card or something like that, these holy swords can be treated as such. However, Wu Ming's words did not move Jiao Yuanfei Bird. Although Wu Ming's words were reasonable. Moreover, I promise to protect you from harm. If you encounter any danger while I'm not by your side, these holy swords can be treated as my protection. Jiao Yuanfei Bird started to think about the promise. Why does it sound so much like a confession? Black Rabbit complained embarrassedly. Then, Black Rabbit was glared at by Wu Ming and Jiao Yuanfei Bird. If that's the case, I'll take a few. Jiao Yuanfei Bird said as she took out her boon card and placed a few of the holy swords on the ground into it. Wu Ming smiled. After all, for a young lady like her, using a promise was more effective. Chapter 6:11. After Wu Ming's effort, the problem of the distant flying bird was finally solved. After that, Wu Ming prepared to solve the problem of the land. After all, when Letitia persuaded Wu Ming to go out for a walk, Wu Ming didn't think about the problem of Flying Bird's gift. Instead, he wanted to see if he could solve the problem of No Name's land. After all, it wasn't a good idea to leave it abandoned. However, he couldn't tell Flying Bird about this. Otherwise, with her problematic temper, she would definitely cause a ruckus. After that, Wu Ming suggested that they try to restore the vitality of the land. This made Black Rabbit, Ran, and the other No Name members pleasantly surprised. After all, when 16 Knights and the other two joined No Name, the land had already lost its vitality. They, who had never seen No Name's land with vitality, naturally didn't have any expectations. This was like a person who had seen a beautiful scenery and wanted to bring you to see it again. He might be looking forward to it since he had never seen it before. However, if you hadn't seen it before, you wouldn't be able to imagine how beautiful it was. The two were the same. However, humans were such animals. It wasn't that 16 Knights and the other two were cold-blooded and heartless. They were also very concerned about No Name's land being able to restore vitality. After all, this was their home. Mr. Villo, do you have a way to restore the vitality of our land? Black Rabbit's rabbit ears shook as he looked forward to it. If the land can be restored, then we can grow our own vegetables. The little fox girl Lily, who belonged to the logistics team, happily wagged her tail. Although they now had the water tree sapling that Wu Ming and 16 Knights obtained from defeating the water god to provide water, the other ingredients still had to be bought. Although No Name wasn't lacking in money now, generally speaking, larger communities would have their own vegetable gardens and the like. Being self-reliant was not a problem. Just like a country couldn't always rely on foreign imports. If they could rely on themselves, it was better to rely on themselves. Moreover, they should save as much as they could. After all, this money was borrowed from Wu Ming. I'm just giving it a try. I don't dare to boast that I can really restore life to the land of No Name. Wu Ming smiled and shook his head. After all, if you asked Wu Ming to fight, he would absolutely have no objection. But if you asked him to be a doctor or treat an illness, it would be a bit difficult. It wasn't that there weren't any methods to treat it, but Wu Ming hadn't tried treating the soil, so he didn't dare to boast. But he had to give it a try. Everyone had their first time. All in all, Wu Ming went to the land that Long Far Flying Bird had destroyed with the fake holy sword. He started to restore the life force of the land and the land that Long Far Flying Bird had destroyed. After all, although the land was barren, at least it was still flat and didn't look messy. On the other hand, after Jiao Yufei's holy sword had reclaimed the land, not to mention the huge ravine, there were also some serious bumps. Therefore, Wu Ming decided to take the lead and conduct an experiment on the seemingly messy land to see if he could restore the vitality of the land. If it didn't work, he could also restore the land on this side, right? Everyone stood behind Wu Ming, while Wu Ming stood beside the huge ravine. Then I'll begin, Wu Ming said as he knelt on the ground with one knee. First, a golden ripple suddenly appeared beside Wu Ming. Then, Wu Ming took out a few exquisite glass bottles that contained dark red potions. These were the healing potions from the Yggdrasil game world. Wuming opened the exquisite glass bottle and poured the red potion into the ravine. Then, Wuming poured all the healing potions he had taken out into the ravine. The red healing potions quickly seeped into the land. Black Rabbit and the others behind Wuming watched Wuming's series of actions with eyes full of doubt. They really didn't know what the healing potions were, but could it be that by pouring a few bottles of potions, the land that had been abandoned for 3 years after being attacked by the Demon King could be restored? The answer was of course impossible. At least a few of them felt that it was impossible. However, Wuming also thought so. Therefore, Wuming began the next step. Chanting the spirit language. A person with the supreme power of protection, the gods protect him, the demons hate him, 10,000 enemies can't get close to him, like a fountain of vitality that constantly surges, granting the world equal protection. The magical spirit language came out from Wuming's mouth. In just a moment, Black Rabbit and the others felt that Wuming's body began to glow, and it was accompanied by the breath of life. That was normal. Wuming's vitality, one of the 12 incarnations, was like a never-ending fountain. Vitality gave Wuming endless vitality, recovery, and all kinds of resistance. Usually, this ability was used on Wuming passively, but the passive effect was not obvious. However, it was still of great help to Wuming. This was also the reason why Wuming recovered so quickly after being injured by the explosion of the black mud. Having a high HP was not scary, having a high defense was not scary, but being able to recover HP was scary. After flying for half a day, his HP was restored in less than half a day. If Gidia knew about this, he would definitely vomit blood. And if Wuming didn't guess wrong, Gidia didn't seem to have any recovery skills. Therefore, as long as Wuming found his main body and fully activated his vitality incarnation, he would be able to catch Gidia off guard and directly attack the root of the problem. Facts proved that the current Wuming was not unable to defeat Gidia. Being able to make Gidia summon the black mud to self-destruct was the best proof. Cough cough. In short, the vitality incarnation gave Wuming endless vitality. Wuming was ready to use the healing potion as a catalyst to transfer vitality to this land. There was no limit to authority and so on. As long as one was still alive, as long as one worked hard to develop one's ability, nothing was impossible. The ancient flying bird was a good example. It went from being controlled to being given. And Wuming's vitality incarnation, no one said that it could not be transferred out. Although he had never tried it before, Wuming wanted to give it a try today. Then, Wuming placed one hand on the edge of the gully and closed his eyes. Then, Wuming's endless vitality followed Wuming's arm to the swollen land and came in contact with the healing potion that had been integrated into the land. Then, Wuming's mouth moved. Release life. In an instant, an invisible pressure was released with Wuming as the center, and a huge amount of vitality emerged. Chapter 6:12. Countless breaths of life emerged, and the invisible aura spread in all directions. Although it was invisible, it could still affect the surroundings. The aura impacted 16 knights and the others. Ran, Lily, and the others who were weaker couldn't adapt and couldn't help but retreat. Seeing this, 16 knights and Letitia, who were the strongest, stood in front of everyone and blocked the aura. Retroactive 16 knights' uniform fluttered in the wind. Ignoring her messy blonde hair, Retroactive 16 knights smiled at Wuming, the culprit. This is really a big scene. However, Wuming couldn't hear this because he found something interesting. Wuming found that his vitality avatar could restore the lifeless land of no name. No, it should be said that Wuming's vitality avatar alone could do it, and adding the healing potions was just icing on the cake. But that wasn't the main point. It was that Wuming had underestimated his authority. Wuming found that he could completely restore the land within the area covered by the aura. The 12 avatar authorities that were strengthened by the Great Origin, combined with the power of 2 gods and Wuming's own Dragon of Origin, were not weak abilities. Although many of them were not directly related to combat, their powerful effects could not be denied. At this moment, the Vitality Avatar had proven that Wuming's authority was not weak. No, it should be said that there were no weak authorities, only weak users. It seems that I have to take a good look at my authority, Wuming said to himself. Then, Wuming looked and found that the area covered by the aura he just released was the entire area of no name. In other words, Wuming could completely restore the lifeless land of no name to its perfect state. Let's do it. Wuming nodded without hesitation and put his other hand on the ground. 16 knights and the others instantly felt the ground shaking. What's going on? Is it an earthquake? Black Rabbit was shocked and subconsciously protected the arm of Haruhi Biai-Chi, who was closest to her. It's not an earthquake, it's Master's ability. Letitia answered Black Rabbit calmly. Although she couldn't fully understand her master's ability, Letitia, who had become Wuming's dependent, could still somewhat sense Wuming's ability. Just like now, the earth shaking was caused by Wuming's ability, and Letitia could sense it. At this time, Haruhi Biai-Chi, who was especially concerned about the lifeless land, suddenly spoke. Look around you. Everyone looked at the land around them. The cracked ground began to heal, and the nutrient-less sand began to disappear. The soft and weak ground began to harden, and some green grass began to grow on the ground that had no greenery at all. This is... Black Rabbit, Ran, and the others were quite shocked. Needless to say, everyone understood. It was obvious that the vitality of this land had been restored by Silent Cry. This is great. Our land is finally rejuvenated. Black Rabbit happily hugged Haruhi Biai-Chi, who was beside her, and jumped up and down. Even Haruhi Biai-Chi, who was a hypocrite, was moved by Black Rabbit's excitement, and a slight smile appeared on his face. Ran, Lily, and Letitia also had expressions of joy. After all, they had personally seen this land that was originally filled with life become barren, and now they saw this barren land filled with life again. This was the feeling of an old player. 16 Knights and Jiuyuki weren't as excited as Black Rabbit and the others, but the smiles on their faces showed that they were in a good mood. But there was a problem. Villow's land seems to have been restored a bit too much. Jiuyuki, who was carefully observing, saw that even the land near the house in no name had been restored and slightly frowned. Immediately, 16 Knights jumped into the air, and after a short delay of a few seconds, landed on the ground. I'm afraid that little brother has restored all of No Name's abandoned land. 16 Knights, who had good eyesight, saw the surrounding scene. This isn't good, Jiuyuki said uneasily. As a young lady of a corporate aristocrat, and as a young lady from her world that had just ended World War II, her country had entered a period of recovery. Jiuyuki clearly understood the methods and rules of post-war recovery. No Name was once the largest community in the East District, and was recognized as the regional ruler by Byakuya, the class ruler. Naturally, No Name had a large piece of land. At the very least, it was an area that others would covet. But because of the Demon King's attack, such a large piece of land had completely lost its life. It had lost its name, flag, and companions. This was why the other communities didn't hit it when it was down, and they didn't even try to steal it. After all, a piece of land without life wasn't that easy to restore. Yes, the other communities wouldn't do something like that. Although there weren't many people in No Name who didn't experience the Demon King's attack, it wasn't that small either. At the very least, it was more than enough to take care of such a large piece of land. And now, not to mention 16 Knights and the others, 95% of No Name's people were children under the age of 10. Even if the children were included, there would only be a mere 130 people. No Name's territory was very large, quite large. At the very least, it was the size of a small town. How could you let a village with 95% of its population being children under the age of 10 manage such a large piece of land? As a genius, 16 Knights Reversal naturally understood this logic. However, 16 Knights wasn't worried about this. Little brother has indeed gone a bit overboard, but I think he should have a way to solve it. 16 Knights held the back of his head with both hands as he looked at Wuming, who had finished restoring the land. He stood up and walked over to them. It's done. Wuming smiled and waved at everyone. But as the leader, Ren stood up. Mr. Villo, isn't it a bit too much to directly restore all of No Name's land? Ren smiled awkwardly. After all, he had good intentions. Although it wasn't to the point of questioning him, this kind of question made the shy youth feel embarrassed. Don't tell us you didn't think of this, or I'll look down on you. Jiao Yuanfei, who was slightly closer to Wuming, said ruthlessly. But Wuming didn't disappoint them. How could I not think of this? Of course I have a way. Chapter 6:13. Wu-ming wasn't a careless person. He did it on purpose.
But Mr. Villo, we don't have enough people.
Black Rabbit's ears drooped, looking regretful. Looks like we can only rent out the extra land to earn money. Black Rabbit said helplessly. Why was she helpless? Although Black Rabbit wasn't wrong, this was still the main base of No Name. How could they rent out the main base of the community to earn money? After all, the community was comparable to a country, and as a member of the country, they had a collective sense of honor. This was also why Black Rabbit was helpless, because she didn't want outsiders to enter her and her companions' home. But why would Black Rabbit still consider renting out the land even though she was helpless? Although No Name wasn't short on money, the money was still borrowed from Wu-ming. Although Wu-ming didn't have a deadline, Ran and Black Rabbit had a strong sense of responsibility and believed that they couldn't be too much of a default on Wu-ming's debt. Therefore, they were still making money by principle. Plus, it was really a waste of a large piece of land like No Name. It was a special time to deal with it, so they could only endure the humiliation.
That's the only way.
Ran also nodded helplessly, agreeing with Black Rabbit's opinion. However, this made Wu-ming dumbfounded. I say, Black Rabbit, Ren, are you two listening to me properly? Wu-ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he helplessly flicked Ren and Black Rabbit's heads, causing them to cry out in pain.
Didn't I say I have a way?
Before, when Wu-ming borrowed money to No Name, now it was the same with the land issue. Why did these two always listen to Wu-ming's words? During the borrowing incident, Wu-ming had also said that it was a donation of No Name. However, Black Rabbit, Ran, and even the children who were slightly older than Lily insisted on treating the money as a loan. So be it. Wu-ming didn't want to take it back anyway, so he gave her an indefinite period of time. However, Black Rabbit and Ran had the idea that they had to return the money as soon as possible. They started their money-making plan. Although it wasn't as tiring as before, it still wasn't easy. This time was the same. Wu-ming said that he had a way, but these two guys ignored him. This made Wu-ming not know whether to laugh or cry. How can we allow outsiders to use our No Name base's land? You have to follow your heart, Black Rabbit. Don't forget your original intention. This sentence was not a joke. Black Rabbit's original intention of inviting Wu-ming was to protect her family's home. It could not change because of this. But, Mr. Villo, we really don't have enough manpower. Black Rabbit rubbed his aching forehead with an innocent expression. What a little idiot. Wu-ming smiled helplessly, then gave Black Rabbit's head another smack. Wah dash, because he hit the same place, Black Rabbit was about to cry again. However, the stick had been given. Now it was time to give the carrot. You already have a backer like me. What are you afraid of? Wu-ming stroked Black Rabbit's head and smiled. After all, he was a powerhouse that White Yuxia personally admitted was not inferior to her. It could be said that with such a powerhouse joining No Name, it was only a matter of time before it rose.
Then Villo, do you have any ideas?
Haruhito Hikari pulled Wu-ming's sleeve and asked curiously. Of course, the idea is to increase the number of people. Wu-ming kept them in suspense and smiled. Then, Wu-ming reached out with one hand. In an instant, a golden ripple swallowed Wu-ming's arm. It looked like Wu-ming was looking for something. I've been curious for a long time. Villo, what is this golden ripple? Black Rabbit asked with interest and puzzlement. One of my abilities. It's just ordinary personal space. Although I have the gift card, this old friend has been with me for a long time. It's still more convenient this way. After Wu-ming finished speaking, he seemed to have found what he was looking for and pulled his hand out of the golden ripple. A palm-sized stone figurine appeared in Wu-ming's hand. It looked like a stone giant, but this stone giant was slightly smaller. Stone figurine? Black Rabbit looked curiously at the palm-sized stone figurine in Wu-ming's hand and poked it twice. This is not an ordinary stone figurine. Wu-ming shook his head and moved his arm away from Black Rabbit who was poking the figurine. This made Black Rabbit puff out his cheeks in dissatisfaction. Did you know that there is a rare stone figurine item that can summon endless demons? Wu-ming stopped playing with Black Rabbit and asked everyone. Wu-ming had such an item. It was one of the many powerful items that Demiyugos gave Wu-ming when Wu-ming left Nazalic. A rare gift that can summon endless demons? Everyone who had never heard of such a gift muttered. If that item is used, unless the item is destroyed, the summoned demons will fill up the entire world. Endlessly summoning demons was no joke. It was a real thing. It was a game item. When game items were transformed into reality, some of their abilities were often quite terrifying.
Resurrection alone was already very powerful.
No matter which world it was, resurrecting life was quite difficult. Only existences like Nazalic had the ability to resurrect without any sequelae. Or it could be said that the other world also had such an ability. Wuming learned from Sebastian that Rose Tsong's captain had the ability to resurrect. However, it seemed that the physical fitness had to meet the standard, and they had to lie in bed for a month. Even so, the native of that world had the ability to resurrect, which was enough to open Wuming's eyes. After Wuming finished speaking, Xiaofan Niao looked at the stone figurine in Wuming's hand seriously.
Could it be that the one in your hand is that rare gift?
Xiaofan Niao asked calmly.
Of course not.
Wuming shook his head. This made Black Rabbit, Ran, and the others who were slightly worried feel relieved. Although I also have that item. Then why did you say it as if you have never seen it before? Black Rabbit roared at Wuming. Ignoring Black Rabbit's roar, Wuming raised the stone figurine in his hand. Or rather, it could be called the magic puppet, Graham, figurine. It seems that magic puppets are stone figurines. This is a tool that can summon an endless number of magic puppets. Chapter 6:14. Endless Magic Marionettes? Everyone repeated Wuming's words. You mean to let the magic marionettes work on No Name's land? 16 Knights crossed his arms in front of his chest. As one of the more intelligent members of No Name, 16 Knights easily guessed Wuming's thoughts based on the series of words he had said before. After all, there are a lot of magic marionettes, and they don't need to eat or rest. They are the perfect labor force. As he said this, Wuming looked at the magic marionette in his hand. This tool could summon endless magic marionettes of various types. Although there were no management-type magic marionettes, as long as the tool was controlled properly and recognized as the master of No Name, then even the youngest child of No Name would be able to command the magic marionettes. Moreover, this is a tool that can summon endless magic marionettes. We can also make money by selling magic marionettes. Wuming's words made Ranha Black Rabbit's eyes light up, and his expression became more cheerful. Lily also cried out happily. That's great. This way our community won't have to worry about financial resources. Although Lily looked like a little lowly, in the No Name where the average age was less than 10 years old, Lily had a lot of responsibilities. Not only did she have to prepare 3 meals a day for Wuming and the others, but she also had to lead the capable children to prepare 3 meals a day for the 120 children. Not only that, but Lily was also in charge of all kinds of daily necessities and all kinds of housework for No Name. Although the No Name's house was damaged a lot, but in these 3 years, a part of it was repaired, but this part was already big enough. Otherwise, why would there be an underground bathing area, and Wuming and the others could choose a room at will, and that was because the house was big. All in all, Lily took on a heavy responsibility that shouldn't be taken on at her age. Wuming's mind was thinking, and a light flashed in his eyes. Time to do something. Wuming's reaction was self-reflection, but Ranha Black Rabbit's reaction was different from Wuming's. Both of their expressions became gloomy. Mr. Villo, I'm really sorry for troubling you, Ren said rather embarrassedly. Immediately after, Black Rabbit also spoke in embarrassment. Young Master Ren is right. Mr. Villo obviously didn't care about the decline of No Name, and joined our community. You even put in so much effort to contribute to No Name. We really don't know how to thank you. The first thing they thought of was not their own community, but their companions, members, who had sacrificed themselves for this family, community. After all, the reason why they risked their lives to protect the community was for their companions and their family. Meanwhile, this family member in front of them had made a sacrifice that would be highly appreciated by any other community for the sake of the community. Meanwhile, their community didn't have the ability to repay this family member and could only ask for more. This made the Ranha Black Rabbit very upset, especially the Black Rabbit who was full of dedication as a member of the Yuetu clan. However, in the face of their guilt, Wuming could not help but laugh. What are you guys talking about? In an instant, Wu-ming had a matter-of-fact look on his face. Do I need a reward for my family? Isn't this a matter of course? Ran, Black Rabbit, and even Lily beside them and Letitia behind Wu-ming were all stunned. That's right. For the sake of the family members and companions were all selfless contributions. It wasn't about how long a family member contributed, nor was it about how little other family members contributed. However, because of Wu-ming's strength, Ran and the others subconsciously treated Wu-ming as a guest of honor. This caused them to feel guilty. I actually don't have much ambition. Even if I've experienced a lot of adventures in other worlds and defeated a lot of powerhouses, I don't think many people know me. Wu-ming recalled with a smile. Whether it was the world of Type Moon or other worlds, Wu-ming could be said to be not very famous. In the alternate world of Nazalic, Wu-ming was at most a kind and powerful recluse who had subordinates who were not weaker than him. At most, his reputation was only promoted by the Golden Princess in Ristage. The commoners only knew that there was a powerhouse. Furthermore, Wu-ming strictly forbade Nazalic from breaking ties with the outside world. Other than Sebastian, the upper echelons of the Ristage Kingdom, and some special people, Wu-ming was only famous in Nazalic. In the world of the Godslayers, ordinary people did not know about the Godslayers at all. Even if Wu-ming was the last king, he was only famous in the magic circle. However, being famous was one thing. Those who knew Wu-ming and had seen Wu-ming were few. In the alternate world where they competed for the Star Cup, other than Rick's group of humans, only Xiaobi and the Skywings knew him. Although other races also knew of Wu-ming's existence, Wu-ming did not know whether they had seen Wu-ming or not. Not only that, but other than Rick, the humans also treated him as an ordinary refugee. However, looking at Wu-ming's history, he was actually quite famous in a sense. In the world of the Type Moon, the powerhouses were all existences of the Root Dragon, and other worlds also had people who knew of Wu-ming's fame although they had not seen him before. It was just that Wu-ming had never thought of being famous. Wu-ming's original thoughts were only to become stronger and return home. Now he had returned home, and his strength had changed. His current goal was to get rid of Gitia, the hidden danger. However, that was the big goal, and Wu-ming's current small goal was to develop No Name first. I'm a part of this family. Wu-ming smiled in return. Mr. Villo. Black Rabbit and the others did not know what to say. In short, they were touched. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Wu-ming began his performance. Also, the money I donated to No Name before, I never thought of asking you to return it. Wu-ming looked at Ran and Black Rabbit with a look of negotiation. Why don't we just forget about it? Wu-ming said with a smile. However, Black Rabbit was the first to disagree. How can we do that, Mr. Villo? We already said that we would borrow it. How can we go back on our words? They always felt that Black Rabbit was the one who borrowed the money, and Wu-ming was the one who borrowed the money. That's right, Mr. Villo. We must return this money. Ren also had a determined expression. Yes, yes, do as you please. Wu-ming replied with a bitter smile. Sure enough, the one who owed money was the boss, and they had to listen to the boss. Seeing that Wu-ming's debt dispute had ended, the three problem children began to become active. Then, Black Rabbit, let's talk about our direct problem. 16 Knights of Reverse smiled at Black Rabbit with a terrifying smile. What? Black Rabbit was confused. She did not know how she offended this group of people. Of course it's because you kept talking about Villo and neglected our matter, Black Rabbit. Zhou Fei Niao pointed out the problem. After all, the three of them continuously participated in the gift competition, which was also a great help to No Name. Not mentioning us made me unhappy. That's why Black Rabbit needs to be punished. Haruai Toshi said lightly. The Black Rabbit looked at the three problem children in shock and let out a cry of surprise. No! Chapter 6:15. Ren panicked and wanted to stop them, but he couldn't do anything as he watched the three problem children bully the Black Rabbit. Wu-ming, Letitia, and Lily went to the houses of No Name. Wu-ming's intention was to renovate No Name's house as well. After all, it was a bit awkward to have a bunch of broken houses on such a large piece of land. Therefore, with Ren's approval, Wu-ming followed Lily to the houses. Master, do you know how to repair houses? Letitia asked respectfully. But it sounded like she was doubtful. Master, these houses don't have any life force, and many of them have already collapsed. It will be difficult to repair them. Hearing Letitia's words, Wuming looked at some of the collapsed houses on the outskirts of No Name's territory. No Name was once the largest community in the East District. Therefore, this piece of land that was once the largest community in the East District was naturally huge. It was impossible to only build a few houses in the center. There must be some houses in the entire territory. But because of the Demon King's attack, as well as the desolation of the land, it was already very difficult for the people of No Name to repair the houses in the center. Therefore, in these 3 years, the houses in No Name's territory were basically not repaired by the people of No Name. Therefore, these houses had already collapsed. Not only that, many of the houses in the center of No Name's territory had also collapsed. As the largest community in the East District, the house in the center was actually quite big. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a castle. Well, as a box world with many gods and Buddhas, basically every community that was slightly stronger had this kind of Western castle-style residence. The castle was connected to the outside with a huge reservoir. At this moment, the reservoir was filled with incomparably clean water. It was the water provided by defeating the water god and obtaining the water tree sapling. In the beginning, when the black rabbit placed the water tree sapling on the small platform in the middle of the reservoir, the water that instantly covered the entire reservoir made the birds from the past excited for a while. The clean reservoir complemented the land that was full of life, but it was surrounded by castle-like houses that looked like they had been abandoned for a long time. This was an existence that was rather inconsistent with the land and the pool. Therefore, Wuming decided to first repair the houses here and then take care of the other houses. Letitia, I really don't have the ability to repair houses. Looking at these castle-like houses that looked like dilapidated houses, Silent Wonder spoke to Letitia without looking back. Lily, who was listening on the side, was stunned. So embarrassing. Why did you come back if you don't have the ability to repair houses? But Letitia was waiting for Wuming to continue. But we have this. Wuming raised his arm, and the small golem statue appeared once again. Without saying anything, Wuming directly infused magic power into the stone statue. The moment the statue's eyes turned to Letitia, the statues to be activated. Then, a dark purple ripple appeared beside Wuming. It was a skill that Wuming often used, portal. However, this wasn't a portal. It was a passage that Wuming created to spawn magic puppets. You see, isn't Yggdrasil a game? Basically, all the ripples in this game are in the form of portals. They are all purplish-black ripples. Although it was a bit of a shoddy job, at least it was useful. It could spawn monsters. Suddenly, a stone pillar came out of the dark purple portal. Taking a closer look, it wasn't a stone pillar. It was clearly the leg of a magic puppet. Then, a 5-meter-tall stone giant with red eyes and a body made of hard white stone walked out and stood beside Wuming. Then, Silent Cry stopped channeling mana into the golem statue in his hand, and the purple-black ripples disappeared. Of course, it wasn't that Wuming didn't want to work anymore. He just wanted to see if this magic puppet could meet his requirements. Go repair the damaged house. Wuming ordered the magic puppet. Originally, monsters that were summoned by a tool that could summon unlimited monsters wouldn't listen to the summoner's orders. However, magic puppets were different. In the game Yggdrasil, they wouldn't move unless there was a master or a leader who gave the order. Normally, the magic puppet would be in a standby state. Only when a high-level magic creature or its master gave it an order would the magic puppet begin to move according to the order given. Therefore, Yggdrasil originally didn't have a tool that could summon magic puppets like this. However, after Wuming found out that there was a tool that could summon unlimited demons, Wuming created a tool that could summon magic puppets based on that tool. Well, actually, it was because Wuming was tired of making magic puppets one by one during the battle against Darius. Even with the help of Ain Zergong, Wuming didn't have to make magic puppets one by one. That was a very troublesome thing for Wuming. Therefore, Wuming used his own grand creation item to create a modified version of the Magic Puppet Unlimited Summoning Tool, based on the tool that could summon unlimited demons. By controlling the amount of magic power released, one could control the number of magic puppets that could be produced. One could also choose the type of magic puppet that could be produced. Another thing was that it could be turned off or turned on at any time. The tool that could summon unlimited demons couldn't be turned off once it was started. Therefore, it was a very rare tool. Wu-Ming's tool was even more cheat-like. It could be turned on or off at any time. In addition to being able to control the amount and speed of production, and choose the type of magic puppet that could be produced, this tool was comparable to a god-tier tool. If it wasn't for the fact that the magic puppets produced weren't very strong, they would be close to a world-class tool. All in all, the monsters produced by this tool could be controlled. Otherwise, Wu-Ming wouldn't be at ease to give it to children. After hearing Wu-Ming's words, the magic puppet immediately walked towards the house in front of it. Because of its weight, every step the magic puppet took shook the ground. If it wasn't for Wu-Ming giving life to the ground and making the ground solid, the magic puppet would have probably sunk into the sand and left a footprint on the ground. In short, the magic puppet began its performance. Chapter 6:16. Oh, so this is the magic puppet you summoned with your item. It looks quite sturdy. I wonder if it can take a punch from me. I'm getting excited. 16 Knights, who was attracted by the magic puppet, walked to Wu-Ming with her arms crossed. Please don't attack it. If you punch it, it will probably be reduced to rubble. Wu-Ming looked at 16 Knights helplessly. At this time, Ku Asuka's voice came from the other side of Wu-Ming. Ku Asuka patted Wu-Ming's arm with excitement and curiosity. The stone giant in the fairy tale. I didn't expect to see one in the Hakata world. This is the first time I've seen one. As expected, a common monster like the stone giant would be the most familiar monster in the eyes of ordinary people. Yes, then can you stop hitting me? Wu-Ming resisted powerlessly. Although he wouldn't get hurt, it didn't feel good. I didn't expect you to be so chaste. 16 Knights also looked at Ku Asuka with a mocking expression. How would a villain like you understand my interest? Ku Asuka didn't back down and replied to 16 Knights, but her eyes were still on the magic puppet. From Wu-Ming's point of view, Ku Asuka didn't look like someone who was interested in fairy tales. She looked more like someone who was interested in strange creatures. This probably had something to do with Ku Asuka's era. After World War II, there probably wasn't much entertainment. This was especially true for Jiao Yuanfei, who was the young mistress of the family. She must have been extremely busy back then. Wu-Ming guessed. However, Wu-Ming's guess was the opposite of the truth. Ku Asuka, who had the ability to control, wasn't bothered by her responsibilities as a young lady. How is it going to repair the damaged house? Haruai Hibu asked. Since 16 Knights and Ku Asuka had lost interest in the Black Rabbit, then Haruai Hibu, who was a problem child, naturally followed along. Wu-Ming looked at the Black Rabbit that was being supported by Ran with pity. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. Then, Wu-Ming answered Haruai Hibu's question. It naturally has its own unique method. I guarantee that it will be unexpected and reasonable. Wu-Ming crossed his arms and waited for the magic puppet's performance. The magic puppet walked up to No Name, which was a huge building that looked like a castle, and slowly stopped in front of it. Because the other members of No Name had taken care of it for the past 3 years, the castle-like building only had some minor damage and color faded. However, the magic puppet didn't care how it was damaged or how badly it was damaged. It only knew that it needed to fix this place. Then, the magic puppet itself disintegrated. That's right, the stone golem had disintegrated into a pile of rubble. These rubble combined with the rubble of the collapsed walls, and under the influence of its own mana, the rubble wrapped around the castle-shaped building. In an instant, the 5-meter-tall stone giant, at the cost of losing its own body, repaired the building that looked damaged. Even the outer walls of the castle were rearranged by the stone giant's stone pieces. The missing parts were repaired, and the old parts were disintegrated by the magic puppet into fine dust. The entire outer wall was repaired by the magic puppet, and it looked like a newly built building. This is really not simple. This stone giant's limbs are developed, but its brain is quite good. Black Rabbit, who was being supported by Wu-Ming, commented on the magic puppet summoned by Wu-Ming. Seeing that she had just been played by the 3 problem children, Wu-Ming didn't want to complain about the Black Rabbit anymore. In fact, it was because Wu-Ming had given the magic puppet a command in advance. If there was a hole, it would be repaired. If there was a hole, it would be repaired. If there was a hole, it would be repaired. If there was a hole, it would be repaired. In short, As long as there was an imperfect place, the magic puppet would find it and repair it. But this way, the efficiency has increased by a lot. Ren nodded as he looked at the magic puppet's repaired wall. There wasn't the slightest gap in the wall. It looked like a natural whole piece. Every piece of broken stone was tightly entwined with the building due to the influence of mana. It didn't look like it was made up of large pieces of broken stone. But, if we use these magic puppets to repair all the buildings, won't it cause the building to collapse later? Haruai Hibu asked. Don't worry, the magic puppet's magic power will change the gaps between itself and the building it is attached to. It can fuse the two together. After a while, when the magic puppet's magic power is exhausted, it will fuse into the same material. Wu Ming's words made everyone feel relieved. Then let's continue, everyone. Wu Ming wasn't talking about the no-name people, but the magic puppets. Wu Ming began to inject magic power into the magic puppet in his hand again. This time, the amount of magic power injected was quite large. In an instant, a black and purple ripple appeared, and several 5-meter-tall figures walked out from it. It was the mass-produced version of the stone giant from the very beginning. When these stone giants came out, they each ran to the no-name houses. After the first batch of magic puppets left the ripple space, the second batch of magic puppets walked out with their hard legs, shaking the earth. In this way, Wu Ming continued to inject magic power into the magic puppet in his hand, and the same stone giant magic puppets came out from the black and purple ripple space. Looking at the no-name territory that seemed to have become a breeding ground for stone giants, everyone didn't know what to say. Actually, when the second batch of stone giants came out, everyone was already surprised. Well, if it was back to 16 nights, Wu Ming couldn't see whether he was surprised or not, but everyone was surprised. This was because Wu Ming's magic puppet summoned too many stone giants, and it didn't seem to stop. These stone giants were at most 6 digits, and 5 digits was impossible. However, if there was a community with countless 6-digit stone giants, then that community would be at the top of the 6-digit stone giants. Maybe even a 5-digit stone giant could try to level up. When Wu Ming said that he had a magic puppet that could summon an unlimited number of monsters, everyone was surprised, but they had never seen such a scene, so their surprise wasn't that high. However, after seeing such a scene, it was really shocking. There was no other way. These countless stone giants were really too spectacular. Ren thought for a moment, and began to mobilize. Since it's like this, then everyone, let's do a big cleaning of the no-name today. Oh! Of course, it was Black Rabbit who shouted this. It was still very awkward in the situation where everyone was silent. However, this time it was a little better. Not only was Black Rabbit shouting, Lily was also embarrassed with her. Chapter 6:17. In the evening, the sun had set. The entire no-name had entered a world of darkness. Wu Ming and the others stood in front of the brand-new no-name base, full of joy and gratification as they looked at the renovated castle that looked brand new. This is great. Our community finally has some semblance of what it used to be. Black Rabbit bounced around the group happily, just like a rabbit. That was indeed the case. No-name was built 3 years ago. Although it wasn't very luxurious, it still had a grand atmosphere, unlike now where the land was abandoned and the buildings were damaged. Therefore, after Wu Ming used the magic puppets to roughly repair the no-name buildings, a brand new and more simple building complex appeared in front of everyone. This made the original no-name members quite moved. There was nothing more exciting than falling from a high place to a low place and then climbing back up. Not to mention Black Rabbit, Letitia and the other old members of no-name. Even the new members like 16 Knights had a satisfied look on their faces. However, at the beginning, they had a shameless look on their faces as they refused to do it. What was going on? The situation was like this. When Ren proposed a thorough cleaning, everyone readily agreed, except for the 3 problem children, who were unwilling. Boring, not doing it. I'm a lady. If the 2 of them don't want to do it, then I don't want to do it either. Then, when Wu Ming suggested that they could command the small magic puppets to clean, the 3 problem children's eyes lit up. Then, he led the special-shaped magic puppet that Wu Ming had summoned with an item and left to clean up the mess. They were very interested in magic puppets, so how could they let go of such an opportunity to command magic puppets? As for the special magic puppets, they were basically the size of a person, large enough to walk into a house. There were no such magic puppets in Yggdrasil, but they couldn't resist Wuming's methods. Even the tools were modified by Wuming himself, so adding some special magic puppets was no problem at all. After all, magic puppets could be casually made. The essence of a magic puppet was a pile of rocks. Fire magic puppets, steel magic puppets, and the like were just a pile of rocks with a ball of flame or a large amount of iron added to it. Just like that, Wuming, Letitia, and Lily repaired the buildings on the outside, while Ren, Black Rabbit, and the three problem children cleaned up the inside. With almost unlimited magic puppets, whether it was repairing the buildings on the outside or cleaning on the inside, with these magic puppets and other people's commands, the efficiency could be said to be quite fast. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't have been able to clean up all the buildings in No Name's territory in less than a day. By the way, while a large number of magic puppets were working, they also attracted the attention of more than 100 children from No Name. When the children asked for the reason, Wuming directly pushed the credit to Ren, making Ren, as the leader of the community, rise in the children's hearts. This made Ren somewhat helpless, but after all, Wuming had already said it, and even threw the tools that were always activated into Ren's hands. In the end, Ren had no choice but to admit it on the spot. Wuming nodded his head in satisfaction as he stood in front of the majestic No Name, white building complex that was filled with an ancient aura. Although the color is a bit monotonous, at least the quality is not bad. How could the quality be bad when using bricks worth 6 digits to build a house? It was already very extravagant. Okay. After all, Villo, you only summoned white magic puppets. How could the color not be monotonous? As a sensitive beauty, Xiaofan was very dissatisfied with the pure white bricks provided by Wuming. After all, rendering multiple colors was the most suitable color for a beautiful girl. That's too troublesome. It's more efficient to only produce the same type of magic puppet. Wuming shrugged his shoulders. Just like Gorgon, who had Tiamat's 100 beast power, she only produced the same type of magic beast at the beginning. But after a long time, she began to produce other types of magic beast. Because of the high efficiency. Wuming was the same. Copying and pasting the same magic puppet would definitely be more efficient than creating a different type. Although this was a tool that could summon unlimited magic puppets, after all, this was a tool that Wuming had modified himself, and Wuming's setting was that the user could choose the type of magic puppet. All in all, the final result was very good. Alright, we've been busy for a day, and the results are not bad. Everyone go rest. At this time, Ren came out to show his effectiveness as a leader. That's true, this is the result of everyone's hard work. If we don't go in and try, we'll be wasting our efforts. Black Rabbit playfully closed one of her eyes and said to everyone. After all, what she said made sense, and it was already late, so everyone entered the finished building. As soon as they entered, they saw some magic puppets standing like guards in the No Name hall. These were the magic puppets that Wuming had specially created to clean the interior of the problem children. When all the buildings were repaired, Wuming had also taught Ren to stop summoning magic puppets. And because these magic puppets didn't need to sacrifice their own bodies to repair the buildings, they were only used as coolies for cleaning, so these magic puppets didn't disappear. And now, they were standing like guards in the building, so it was probably the work of the 3 problem children. Everyone looked at 16 Knights and the other 2. 16 Knights and the other 2 didn't panic at all. Isn't this great, magic puppet guards? 16 Knights waved his hand. It's not a good habit to waste things. Jiao Yuao crossed her arms and said seriously, after all, they couldn't just let these magic puppets stand outside or waste them. This looks pretty good. Haruai Hiroyuki didn't feel that he did anything wrong, so he had an innocent expression. Being guards isn't bad after all. These magic puppets have 6-digit strength, so they're still useful for the current No Name. After all, having a group of 6-digit guards was quite beneficial for the No Name, which was 95% children. Just like when guards sent people to capture the No Name children, if Wuming, 16 Knights, and the others weren't there was a high chance that they would have succeeded. Although Black Rabbit wasn't weak, she wasn't good at playing dirty. If she couldn't find those people, Black Rabbit couldn't do anything, right? Then everyone go to sleep, Ren said with concern. However, the 3 problem children and Wuming didn't move. Master? Letitia asked doubtfully. Following Wuming's gaze, Ren, Letitia, and the others looked at the table. There was a letter on it, and the symbol was a Valkyrie looking at each other. That was the symbol of this and yes. However, Ran, Black Rabbit, and the others had the same thought. It's over. Chapter 6:18. Why was it over? Because it was a letter from that and yes, and no name and that and yes didn't have much contact. The only contact they had was with White Wuxia. Therefore, this letter was most likely sent by White Wuxia, and for White Wuxia to send a letter, something must have happened. The unknown was like catmint to a cat. It was quite attractive to children. And being targeted by problem children was a disaster in the eyes of benevolent Black Rabbit. It wasn't enough that he had harmed his own family. Now he had to go out and harm others. Therefore, Black Rabbit's hair color changed, and then he suddenly jumped in the direction of the letter. Black Rabbit wanted to keep the letter in his pocket in advance. In short, he couldn't let the 3 problem children see the contents of the letter first. However, although Black Rabbit was fast, he couldn't beat 16 Knights. 16th Knights also jumped, but compared to Black Rabbit's jump, 16th Knight's jump was much more impressive. A strong hurricane swept past the no-name people, blowing their sleeves. The most pitiful one was Xiaofan, who was desperately holding onto her dress. Then, Wuming considerately waved his hand, canceling out the hurricane caused by 16 Knight's jump. Thanks. Xiaofan casually but elegantly responded to Wuming's gentlemanly behavior. You're welcome. Wuming shook his head indifferently. After a simple exchange, the two's gazes returned to the battle between 16 Knights and Black Rabbit for the letter. 16 Knights and Black Rabbit were already in front of the letter, but if one looked closely, 16 Knights was in the lead. Damn it! For the future of the community, Black Rabbit will definitely not give this letter to Mr. 16 Knights. Black Rabbit suddenly exploded again. Oh, you're quite motivated. If you want to stop me for the future of the community, then come and try. 16 Knights laughed wantonly, and then suddenly sped up. The two reached out a hand almost at the same time, reaching for the letter on the table. But an accident happened. The shockwave from the impact of the powerful speed directly shattered the fragile table, and the envelope was blown to the side. 16 Knights and Black Rabbit quickly adjusted their bodies and turned to the other side of the envelope. However, the position of the envelope was now closer to 16 Knights, which made Black Rabbit panic. Just as 16 Knights was about to touch the envelope, a small black-purple ripple suddenly appeared under the envelope and devoured it. This caused 16 Knights to frown, while Black Rabbit heaved a sigh of relief. This was because no matter who got the letter, it couldn't fall into the hands of a problem child. Hey, little brother, what do you mean by this? Are you trying to pick a fight with me? 16 Knights turned around and glared at Wuming. He saw that Wuming was holding the envelope that had been swallowed by the blackish-purple ripple, and a small blackish-purple ripple was slowly disappearing above Wuming's arm. What? Mr. Villo? This made Black Rabbit, who had just heaved a sigh of relief, tense up again. Looking at it now, the small blackish-purple ripple was indeed his ability to teleport. The Black Rabbit reacted. It's over. Black Rabbit's ears drooped. Although Wuming said that he was stable during this period, Black Rabbit still couldn't forget that Wuming's nature was also a problem child. Alright, half a problem. However, half a problem child was still a problem child. At this moment, Black Rabbit's back was already gray, and she seemed to have seen the end of the community. You don't have to be so dramatic. Wuming shrugged. Don't worry, I won't give it to the 3 problem children, just trust me. Wuming's words gave Black Rabbit hope. Mr. Villo. Black Rabbit looked at Wuming, touched. It seemed that half a problem child wouldn't mix with a real problem child. Then, Wuming gave Black Rabbit a trust me look, and then looked at 16 Knights. Stealing the other party's prey would definitely make the other party unhappy. Even if it was Wuming, 16 Knights wouldn't forgive it. Then, Wuming smiled at 16 Knights, opened the envelope, and read 10 lines at a glance. Black Rabbit was surprised at Wuming's action of opening the letter. However, if Wuming could not tell 16 Knights and the others the content, then she could understand. Then, Wuming read the main content of the letter under Black Rabbit's petrified figure. I see, the North District is holding a fire dragon birth ceremony. This is an invitation letter from White Wuxia. Fire Dragon Birth Ceremony? Jyo Asuka and Haruai Hiroyuki were confused. Including the North District's art and crafts, as well as the appraisal, there will be many gift competitions, and the central event is scheduled to be a large-scale ceremony for the rulers of the class. That's what the letter says, but I think 16 knights should be interested. Wu Ming squinted his eyes and smiled at reverse 16 knights. At the same time, he revealed a meaningful smile. Of course, I'm very interested in it. 16 knights against the wind laughed. Then, Black Rabbit cried. You problematic children, ah. After Letitia and Lily comforted Black Rabbit, everyone returned to their rooms to sleep. Although the 3 problem children were indeed too excited to sleep, even though Black Rabbit was crying, she still shouldered the heavy responsibility of being the mother of no-name problem children and kept the letter. If you want to go to the North District to participate in the Fire Dragon Birth Ceremony, then go to sleep. Under Black Rabbit's reprimand, the 3 problematic children gave her face and returned to their rooms to sleep. Wu Ming also returned to his room with Letitia under Black Rabbit's resentful gaze. However, Black Rabbit was helpless. Wu Ming didn't lie to her. Wu Ming didn't show 16 knights and the other 2 problematic children the letter. He read it out for the 3 problematic children. After all, Wu Ming followed the rules, so Black Rabbit couldn't say anything. She could only use her eyes to express her silent resentment. As for Wu Ming bringing Letitia back to his room, it was naturally because the maid had to help the master change his clothes to sleep. Of course, although accompanying the master to sleep was within Letitia's acceptable range as a maid, after all, Wu Ming didn't have that intention. Therefore, when Wu Ming began to sleep, Letitia left Wu Ming's room. However, Letitia, who had the key to Wu Ming's room, still stood in front of Wu Ming the next morning before he woke up. When Wu Ming opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was this pretty lowly girl in front of him. It's morning. Wu Ming shook his head, trying to wake up. Yes, master. It's already morning. 16 knights and the others can't wait. This made Wu Ming smile helplessly. Then let's exhaust their patience. Then, Letitia helped Wu Ming wash up and change his clothes. Let's go, Letitia. Let's see how the problematic children are doing. Chapter 6:19. After quickly finishing his breakfast, Wu Ming went to the hall where the members of No Name usually gathered. Then, Wu Ming opened the door and walked in with Letitia. Hey. Bro, we woke up so early without the blonde lowly's service. Why did you wake up so late? As soon as he entered, Wu Ming heard 16 knights teasing him. It's obviously the 3 of you who are too excited. My biological clock is normal. He helplessly glanced at 16 knights, Jioyuki, and Haruai Hibakushi before casually finding a sofa to sit down. Letitia made Wu Ming some black tea. Give me a cup too, thank you. Seeing Letitia's action, Jioyuki smiled and raised her hand. Me too. Haruai Hibakushi's delicate little face sparkled with interest. He looked like a kitten that was interested in the black tea. Then give me a cup too. 16 knights naturally didn't have much interest in the black tea, but since everyone ordered it, he also ordered a cup with the intention of tasting it. What do you think Letitia is? She's my personal maid. Wu Ming said with slight jealousy. At the same time, he narrowed his eyes and helplessly looked at the 3 problem children. Ha! That's funny. I won, Letitia. It's just that you used your ability to take advantage of the loophole. 16 knights responded uncomfortably. Letitia ruined the gift competition that we were going to participate in. Making some black tea as compensation shouldn't be a problem. Jioyuki hit the main point. That's right. Villo is so stingy. Haruai Hibakushi hugged the 3-furred cat and looked at Wu Ming with disdain. The 3 problem children's counterattack made Wu Ming not know whether to laugh or cry. You're the only one with a lot of twisted logic. Wu Ming replied unyieldingly. After that, he didn't say anything else. Letitia also brewed black tea for 4 people. The conversation between the 4 of them was just a casual joke. Therefore, Letitia still brewed black tea for 16 knights and the others. Then, while Letitia was making tea, Wu Ming started talking to 16 knights and the other 2. Where's Ran and Black Rabbit? The 2 of them should have woken up already. Why don't I see them? Wu Ming asked. Because Black Rabbit had a problem child in no name, he woke up very early every day in order to supervise the problem child. As for Ren, he also showed a slightly excited expression yesterday. After all, Ren was still an 11-year-old child, and it was inevitable that he would be interested in the sacrifice. Therefore, Wu Ming judged that the two of them must have woken up. Moreover, they had agreed to go to White Yuxia's place today to see how the fire dragon's birth ceremony was going. As the leader of the community, Ren he had to look after the three problem children. It was impossible for Black Rabbit to be absent. Ren went to the library after breakfast. Black Rabbit is helping Lily and the others with farming. Haruai Hiroyuki answered Wu Ming's question. As the leader of the community, Ren naturally seized the time to learn all kinds of knowledge. Therefore, it was understandable that he went to the underground library after breakfast to learn. Black Rabbit's words were also understandable. While repairing the buildings, Wu Ming also gave the magic puppet authority to the members of No Name. Naturally, this included Lily and the others. With the magic puppets, Lily and the other logistics team could cultivate crops more easily. Therefore, taking advantage of this opportunity, Lily took a few magic puppets to the city early in the morning. She used the event funds to buy various kinds of crop seeds and seedlings. Then, she let the magic puppets bring a lot of seeds and seedlings. It had to be said that this time, Lily was in the limelight of No Name. A 6-digit number was already a very strong existence among the 7-digit number. Everyone in the city knew that Lily, a normal member of No Name, actually had a few 6-digit magic puppets. This naturally caused a huge uproar. However, it seemed that some people had found out through the grapevine that a strong person had joined No Name. Everyone no longer viewed No Name as a group of trash. Therefore, there were no more attempts to steal Lily's magic puppet from them. However, this time, No Name's reputation was one step higher. After that, Lily, who came back, breathed a sigh of relief and began to cultivate. As a restless Black Rabbit, she naturally had to find something for herself to do. Moreover, with such a large piece of land, how could she not use it properly? Now was not the same as before. Now there was no lack of labor, seeds, water, soil, everything was available. Therefore, the little fox girl Lily began to cultivate with a dozen or so slightly older children. Black Rabbit also began to plan the use of No Name's land. Then, Wu Ming's eyes turned cold. He found a problem. It seemed that everyone woke up earlier than him. After realizing this, Wu Ming felt a little awkward. Lily had already woken up early, and so did Black Rabbit. Although Ren was a child, he did not want to disappoint the community after the renovation, so he directly woke up early and began to bury his head in the library. The three problem children were so excited that they could not sleep and woke up early, so he directly ignored them. They are all working hard, Wu Ming said as he picked up the black tea that Letitia brewed and drank it. After all, there are many things to be done in the community. This is normal. Jiao Fei Niao also drank the black tea that Letitia brewed. Not bad, Letitia. I am a little envious of the Villo. Jiao Fei Niao said with jealousy. If Fei Niao still wants to drink, I can make some for you in the future. Letitia smiled slightly. Really? Then it's a deal. Jiao Fei Niao's eyes lit up and then continued to drink the tea. Beside Jiao Fei Niao, Haruai Hiroyuki dipped his finger in the tea and put it in front of San Mao's mouth to let San Mao taste it first. San Mao said that it smells good. Haruai Hiroyuki had the ability to communicate with animals, so no one thought that it was strange for her to talk to a cat. As long as you like it. Letitia nodded with a smile. On the other side of the single-seater sofa opposite Wu Ming, the villainous 16 Knights Reverse drank the black tea in a very standard manner. Ha! This black tea is really good. Reverse 16 Knights Reverse praised. Of course, this was the black tea that Luos drank in Perseus. With that hedonistic second-generation heir's spirit of enjoyment, this tea would definitely be of excellent quality. I really underestimated you, 16 Kuan. I didn't expect a villainess like you to have such good taste in black tea. Jiao Fei Niao tasted the fragrance of the tea. Indeed, Reverse 16 Knights Reverse did not seem like a newbie's tea drinking method, but more like a veteran aristocrat who had been drinking for a long time. Because I am a villainous person with such good taste. Reverse 16 Knights Reverse, shamelessly smiled.
Ka. At this moment the door was opened. A pair of blue rabbit ears entered the four's eyes.
Everyone, are you ready? We are going to visit Lord Byakuya. Then, the four, including Wuming, smiled confidently.
Of course.
4. Chapter 620.
Thousand Eyes Branch.
Wuming, Letitia, 16th Knights, Flying Bird, Dazzle, Ran, and Black Rabbit sat in a row. And in front of the 6 of them sat White Yaksha.
Thou came rather quickly.
White Yaksha used a paper fan to cover the lower half of his face.
His eyes were slightly closed as though he had just woken up.
After all, we have quite a number of problem children here. Furthermore, it's a grand memorial. There's nothing wrong with being a little more proactive, right? Wuming joked with White Yaksha.
Indeed.
White Yaksha glanced at 16 Knights and the other 2. During this period of time, the names of the 3 problem children of no name were well known in the lower levels of the East District. Even White Yaksha had heard of them. Then White Yaksha, it's about time you tell us the truth. 16th Knights didn't mind White Yaksha's gaze as he asked a question that puzzled Ran and Black Rabbit. What do you mean? Black Rabbit's ears perked up as he asked. Ran and Black Rabbit couldn't understand 16th Knights' words. From their point of view, it was only because of no-name's strength that they were invited by White Yaksha, who was the ruler of the social strata. Although your thoughts aren't wrong, how can it be that simple? It could only be said that their thoughts were too easy to guess. 16th Knights could tell at a glance. First of all, there's a problem with this fire dragon's birth ritual. Then, 16th Knights looked at Wuming.
Brother, you should be able to tell, right?
Wuming nodded. It's clearly a ceremony in the North District, but it has to be held together with the East District. There's clearly a problem.
With that, Ran and Black Rabbit also understood.
That's right. Although the relationship between the various strata wasn't bad, it wasn't good either. No, it should be said that they didn't interfere with each other and didn't interact with each other. After all, the difference was too great. Even if they wanted to interact, it was very difficult. Therefore, even if it was a rare grand memorial in the North District, there was no need to hold it together with the East District. Furthermore, you even called us over. I'm afraid there's something special you need us to do. Then, 16th Knight smiled.
I can't wait.
However, the smile of this problematic child made Black Rabbit and Ren a little worried. Oh, your thoughts are still very clear, Villo and 16 Knights of Reverse. White Yaksha praised the 2 of them. But even if nothing happened, I was prepared to invite all of you to this memorial ceremony. In other words, did something really happen, Lord White Yaksha? Black Rabbit began to feel nervous. Before I begin to explain this matter, I'll say that I received the invitation before the preparations for this memorial ceremony. This was also why White Yaksha said that he would invite no name, even if there was no emergency. However, some time ago, a member of 1,000 Yes who had been sleeping suddenly woke up and made a prophecy. Immediately after, Yaksha's expression froze. A Devil King will attack during the Fire Dragon birth ceremony. As soon as he said that, Renha and Hei-Tu's face tightened. The 3 problem children became excited. Only Wuming's face did not change. May I ask how accurate the prophecy is? Haruhito Hikari asked. After all, a prophecy was just a prophecy. There were times when things like this were wrong, although it was rare. Ranha and Hei-Tu looked at White Yaksha's answer expectantly. Having experienced the Devil King's attack, they felt lucky about this prophecy. 100%. White Yaksha's words were like a sharp blade that pierced into Ranha and Hei-Tu's hearts, shattering their expectations. It's a pity. Although I also want to treat this prophecy as that member's wrong prophecy. That member's prophecies have always been 100% successful. There has never been a single failure. This is really a regrettable result. 16th Knights of Reverse said casually, sounding like he was gloating. However, everyone present understood that this was the characteristic of a problematic child like 16th Knights of Reverse. To put it nicely, he spoke without mercy. To put it bluntly, he had a foul mouth. Lord White Yaksha, did you specifically look for us because of the Devil King's attack? Black Rabbit appeared serious and serious. After all, He was a devil king. He could not afford to relax at all. Of course. Didn't you use defeating the devil king as your common slogan? Then you have to be more realistic. Otherwise, you will become a joke to others.
White Yaksha chuckled, looking rather wretched.
Of course, before you make a move on the devil king, I will take care of him, White Yaksha said proudly. Wuming had learned some things about White Yaksha in advance, so Wuming did not doubt White Yaksha's arrogant words at all. Even 16th Knights, Flying Bird, and Radiance had learned about White Yaksha after living in this world for so long. Sun and White Knight Star Spirit, originally a 2-digit devil king, materialized by the heavenly shaking prophecy. Furthermore, even if his strength was negated and weakened because of the heavenly shaking prophecy, his combat strength could still be ranked in the top 10. In order to reassure the gods and Buddhas, he voluntarily lowered his spirit level and accepted the Yaksha divinity of Buddhism, becoming the current ruler of the East District. Although White Yaksha's strength was weakened again after accepting the Yaksha divinity of Buddhism, he was not someone that any Tom, Dick, or Harry could ignore. At the very least, one had to have a 3-digit strength to be able to compete with the current White Yaksha. In other words, if the number of devil kings attacking at the fire dragon's birth ceremony was below 3 digits, then there was no chance of winning against White Yaksha. And if a 3-digit devil king appeared in the lower levels, the gods and Buddhas in the upper levels would not sit idly by. White Yaksha accepted the Yaksha divinity and weakened her strength because she wanted to become the ruler of the lower levels with a 2-digit strength and protect the people. Otherwise, the gods and Buddhas in the upper levels would not allow her to descend. Although White Yaksha was said to be the strongest in the middle and lower levels, Wuming was still a little worried. Don't underestimate the enemy, White Yaksha. The news that you will host the biggest gift competition with the ruler of the North District must have spread. It's impossible that the attacking Devil King did not receive the news. Although Wuming did not finish his sentence, everyone understood what Wuming meant. Knowing that White Yaksha would attend the North District's grand memorial ceremony and still come to attack, this Devil King must have been prepared. Speaking of which, is the reason why the East and North District are holding the ceremony together because of the Devil King's attack? Haruhito Hikari raised his doubts. Then, White Yaksha calmly said something that surprised everyone. Actually, the Fire Dragon's birth ceremony is held by the East and North District in name, but in reality, I'm the only one from the East District. Oh, so that's why you came to us, no name? Chapter 621. North District 54545 Outer Gate. At the entrance of the Here and Yes store. In the distance, a huge red boundary wall that separated the East and North Districts stood there, and the boundary couldn't be seen on both sides of the boundary wall. Gothic spires were scattered all over the city, and there were traces of reclamation on the boundary wall, and some places were hollowed out as exhibition halls. A large number of glass artworks were placed on the streets and in front of shops. As if to add to the atmosphere, there were candlesticks and clown-like people walking on the streets. Walking candlesticks? Jiuyuki excitedly pulled Haruai Hiroyuki. It's true, this place is completely different from the East District. Although she wasn't as excited as Jiuyuki, she was still quite surprised. It seemed that the fact that this was the North District had been confirmed. It seems that White Yaksha didn't lie to us. Then what was that trick just now? Compared to confirming whether this was the North District, 16 Knights was more interested in White Yaksha's trick. It's just a small trick, the branches of Here and Yes are the same, they all have the ability to transfer to each other. White Yaksha pointed at the branch behind him that was exactly the same as the East District's Here and Yes. So that's how it is. Ranha Black Rabbit nodded. Wuming didn't think that transferring between the North District and East District was as simple as White Yaksha said. Wuming noticed a strong spatial fluctuation. Wuming could determine that no one present except himself and White Yaksha noticed the spatial fluctuation. It seems that White Yaksha really can't be underestimated. Wuming thought. Well, the North District has a completely different culture from the East District, so you should enjoy yourselves before the ceremony begins. After all, if he didn't smooth out the anger of these problem children, they would cause a ruckus when the ceremony officially began. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. White Yaksha waved his hand and left. Seeing 16 Knights and the others' interest, Wuming didn't suppress it, but went along with it. Then let's start shopping. In fact, this sentence was said to the 3 problem children.
Then we'll go first.
16 knights said goodbye, then walked toward the more prosperous central area with Jiuyuki and Haruai Hiroyuki. Wait, Black Rabbit is worried about you walking alone. Black Rabbit wants to follow you. Black Rabbit quickly said. Then followed 16 knights and the others. Sure enough, Black Rabbit was worried that the 3 problem children would cause trouble, so it sacrificed shopping time to supervise them. Wu-Ming shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Then, Wu-Ming looked at Letitia, who was still in her maid uniform. Letitia, you go and help keep an eye on them. Yes, Master. Letitia led aside and Wu-Ming looked at the last person around him, our leader, Ren. Actually, I also want to go for a walk. Ren, what are your plans? Wu-Ming was asking if Ren wanted to be abandoned and walk alone, or to walk with Wu-Ming.
That, I want to visit my former ally. Ren awkwardly scratched the back of his head. Ally.
Wu-Ming was surprised, then he understood. After all, the predecessor of No Name was the largest community in the East District. It wasn't strange for them to have allies in other districts.
Then I'll walk with you.
After all, Wu-Ming was slightly interested in this former ally.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Villo.
Ren nodded. After all, Ren was only an 11-year-old child. Walking alone in a place he had never been before would definitely cause him to be afraid. On the way to the ally that Ren mentioned, Wu-Ming and Ren began to chat. Speaking of which, Ren, I didn't hear you mention that we have an ally. Wu-Ming put his hands in his pockets, looked forward, and observed the surroundings. He seemed to ask casually. Actually, our No Name has already cut off contact with that ally for 3 years. Ren said without much confidence. Cut off contact, huh? Wu-Ming looked at the surrounding scenery and narrowed his eyes. This made him think of a lot of things. It's the other party who unilaterally broke the contract, right? Wu-Ming still asked casually. But when Ren heard Wu-Ming's words, his body slightly stiffened. Then he immediately reacted. Well, after all, we are already No Name. It's not strange that they unilaterally broke the contract. Although that was what he said, the dispirited tone in Ren's voice was still obvious. What was the saying, when it rains it pours? The current situation was exactly what it meant. After the Demon King's attack, the flag, name, and companions were all taken away, and then the other allies unilaterally broke the contract. Wu-Ming believed that this kind of, when it rains, it pours situation must have happened many times in the past 3 years. For Ren He and He too to be able to hold on under such circumstances for 3 years, it could be said that the bitterness within was not enough to be told to outsiders. It was impossible to explain it all clearly in a short time. But after all, we are allies. A visit is still necessary, although it's a little. Ren lowered his head and told Wu-Ming. But before Ren could finish, he was interrupted by Wu-Ming. Pa-dash, Wu-Ming suddenly put his hand on Ren's shoulder, and Ren subconsciously stopped. Mr. Villo? Ren looked at Wu-Ming in confusion. Don't worry, Ren. If you want to go, then go boldly. I'm not even afraid of White Yiksha. Why would I be afraid of a bad ally who unilaterally broke the contract? Wu-Ming smiled at Ren. Remember, although they looked down on us in the past, we will make them unworthy in the future. Wu-Ming's words made Ren slightly stunned. But Ren did not think that Wu-Ming's words were a bluff. It wasn't just the powerful Wu-Ming, but with 16 knights and the other 2, the rise of No Name was inevitable. Although the 3 of them were problem children, it was much better to do bad things than good things. Let's go, let's meet our ally. Okay. Because there was still some distance to go, Ren told Wu-Ming about the community of this former ally. The 5-digit middle-level community, Salamandra, was based at the place where No Name and the others were at now, the outer gate of 54,545. It was a hereditary community with a flame dragon pattern as its flag. The members of the community had a wide range of viper bloodlines, and at the same time, they dominated many viper species. In short, it was a community based on group strength. Coincidentally, this was the opposite of the current No Name. The current No Name was a community of individual strength. After all, they were few in number but powerful. After Ren told Wu-Ming the basic information, the 2 arrived at the entrance of Salamandra's base. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.